Claudia, you were already talking about your question, so I'm going to say let's go with you first,
Oh.
David, unless you have a little spiel.
No, this is going to be like question and answer. There are other pros here too, so it's not. I'm not. Trust me, I'm not pro. I can tell. What's up?
So here's our issue, and our issue is with ELOCs. Okay, so we have our PSH grant that was running with the year, not the fiscal year, but calendar year. I've changed that anyway, it's been changed. But in ELOCs, our financial folks, because we're asking for the last 2 years of grant closures, correct?
Right.
To add to that. So with historic data that Nora provided, I was able to get the one ending in 2020. So January through December 2020. Yeah. In ELOCs, it won't let us pull January 21 through December 21 because it'll only let us see the current grant that was just allocated so July 1st, and then the grant that ends 2022. The old date grant.
Right.
So I have a grant closure agreement form that was signed by the previous program director, Denise, and David Guinea, showing that it was closed out and that it was accepted as closed out, but it's not from ELOCs, and it is for that grant year. But it shows out that it was all dispersed.
Okay.
But it's not from ELOCs, and I can show all the draws for that year from like the fiscal can put it together for me. Would that be sufficient?
Yeah. So I'm just gonna bounce something off Nora real quick, and this is a great Q&A that should go on our Q&A list because it's come up now. So it sounds like, in general, HUD has changed something which allows you to do drawdowns 90 days after an end of the year. So I'm just kind of putting that out there for everyone to hear. So there are other agencies, Claudia, that don't have in ELOCs a true drawdown history. All right. So this came up this week. And so what Nora and I talked about, and I think we've agreed to, is if you have documentation from your finance department or your drawdown slips that show you did everything, then we will take that over ELOCs because we know ELOCs is not necessarily accurate based on these scenarios. Okay.
That's awesome, because I do have the finance department did go through and pull all of the old drawdowns for me. So I have those. So it is kind of a larger document just because it's once almost every month, right?
Yeah.
Not an issue. And then I can attach this closeout agreement that I have from HUD, yes, showing that it was closed out, and then we should be golden with our numbers.
Perfect. Yeah, and you would, I would say you don't need to send all the drawdowns with your application. Just send that document that says that it was all drawn. Okay. Even if it's an email from your finance director.
Okay.
It's on there.
Perfect. And then I'll include this closeout. Okay. Yeah. Because that's the only issue that I was having. Even Justina and I was like, what do we do? And so then I should be able to just get this put together, get signatures, and y'all should have it hopefully before the end of the day, if not first thing Monday. Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that question up because it seems to be happening everywhere.
Okay.
We just discovered it. So as long as we have documentation.
We're broken. Our system's broken.
No. You know, and it has us thinking next year maybe a different process. For the finances.
It's awesome. And then one more question on the back when we were doing when the error, the little box on the second page of the application or the points, the points page.
Yeah.
There is an error because my data is zeros. There's 0 errors. And so I did put the zeros. It does look like it's giving me the 25 points, but on that little box, it still says you may have an error. Check your zeros.
Okay. Yeah. So the flags are just to say, oh, okay, let me make sure and so you're checking and it's true. So you're fine. It was just kind of like, wait, so are you sure you have 0 errors? I don't know why my voice decided to go that high.
Oh,
No
perfect.
comment? No comment.
Thank you.
No,
Thank you
you're
so much.
fine. It's just kind of like a, oh, just check it, make sure. So you're good. Yep. Cool. What other questions? Tina.
Thanks, David. So
Sure.
I have two. One is about my 703 report. So I ran it a while ago, actually, since it was,
Yeah.
for only through March 31st. And it showed in this one category, just one person out of 5 had an increase in income. Then I'll just confess, I was talking to the case managers and realized, oh, there was another person in the same time period who should have had an update. So we added the update. So I waited, and we did it yesterday. So I waited till today and I ran the 703 again, and they show in the detail that that the income is now pulling in, but yet it still says only one person increased their income. And I'm like, what's wrong with this? Do I need to wait longer before I run that report?
No, it should be the 24-hour, unless something happened, that 24-hour didn't work. But so I think in this case, if you and or your case manager want to send me that ID, and I just want to make sure that it has that step-by-step date, that it says this one ended on this date and the next day it started on this date.
Yeah.
Just to verify that.
Okay.
Because
Just of that client particularly.
yeah, the one that's not showing up.
Okay.
That you did and it's not showing up, because it could be in, there might have been a mistake in just how you tracked the dates for that income.
Okay.
And then if that doesn't work, then we'll look at something else.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the only thing I can think of right offhand.
Okay. The only other thing was I was looking at the renewal application, and on the section where you put in the numbers from you put in, it's like section 5 on the first tab, where you put in the increased income from earned income, and increased income again, 4.4 and 4.1. Anyway, actually it has the other two too. So in blue under that, it says, if you think your project may underperform in these scoring factors, documentation may be provided in the form of a letter stating how many PSH clients were served in the reporting time frame and how many were or are in the process, are in the application process for SSI or SSDI. Provide the relevant HMIS client ID numbers for review and confirmation. So is that still something we can do, or is this just leftover language from before? And I mean, we just write a letter and say, hey, these 4 people are still 0 income, they're all disabled, but they're still trying to get their disability.
Yeah, I'm trying to find, where's 20%. So I'm looking at the income.
It's on the first tab under where it says section 5 to 7, and then it's at the bottom, and underneath that in blue italic.
Documented in the form of a letter stating how many were served in their time frame and how many were in the application. Okay. I'm going to try to make some logic out of this. First of all, it probably was a carryover.
Yeah.
But I think this might be related, and this is a might, for those projects that don't have a year's of data. And it looks like it's saying here, so if you don't have everyone in your PSH, for instance, that were in the process during the application process, how many were in the application? Were served in the time frame, and how many were in the application process? So that means there's got to be a a difference in the numbers. It's allowing who's in the project during that time frame and who. Am I making any sense? There's two potential numbers there, right? What's reported in that time frame and how many were not being reported because they're still in the application process. Is that meaning anything to you from any past renewals?
Well, I guess the real question is, even if we write that, how is it going to be used? It's sort of subjective. So how
Right.
is it going to factor in? So that's why I was wondering if how something like that would even be considered.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing, going back to it, and again, like I said, this is something that might have come from old applications, is, if I've underperformed, but I know that 5 of my individuals are new in the process, so they're not getting counted during that 4-1 time frame, but they're still in the project time frame. You don't want to not get credit for that. So you would come back and say, well, these 10 people are going to show up, but these are not, because they are not in my time frame, even though they're in my project during this.
But
Makes sense.
well, frankly, it can take years for you to get your disability. So
Yeah.
These people, some of the people have been zero income for like going on 2 years now.
Yeah.
Are you not talking about people like that, or are you?
Yeah. So no, it's a really great question. Again, unless we talked about it last year, Dina, when we were revamping this, it probably came over from an old one, because I don't know. I don't know exactly. The only thing that, again, that could impact this is if your program didn't start in time to get a year's worth of data, that perhaps this is allowing for that lag time.
Or
But
if maybe they got their disability after April 1st.
Yeah.
I don't know that would matter anyway.
Yeah. Are you having that? Is that an issue happening at CSC?
Well, they're just everybody. We don't have a lot of people in PSH. So when, 1 out of 7 is a humongous percentage.
Yeah.
Or if none of them have it, it's 0.
Yeah.
So that doesn't help.
Yeah. So
they're all disabled. So some got their disability and some still haven't. So that's all. It just takes them a while.
yeah. So I would go back.
It doesn't matter.
So think of it as, so in this case, HUD says you have to meet a certain threshold of income increase. So if you've met that threshold and over, you're going to get the full points. All right. For that. Right. So if you have someone and it's bringing that, that's below your threshold is getting pulled down by that, that's when we want to talk about fine.
Okay. Well, they're definitely pulling it down.
Yeah. So, we'll need to go offline, not you and 2 of us, but, with Nora and some other people to talk through that, because I don't have an answer. If you're below the threshold, we want to see what's going on with that. If it's just because someone's not getting counted during a certain time frame.
Yeah, it's not a case of not getting counted because of date issues.
Yeah.
It's just, that's harder than it sounds. And frankly, I know this is a HUD threshold, but it's kind of odd that they grade you on increases in employment separately when you're only supposed to be helping people who are legally disabled.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah. Well, hopefully that at least they bring that threshold down lower than the rapid rehousing.
It is lower, but it's still kind of like, wow, you really think about it. That's not an easy threshold to hit.
Yeah. Yeah. It's 20% for PSH. All right. So yeah, if you're not getting that 20% for whatever reason, you're not getting that threshold. So you're not getting your full 10 points, then let's bring it to the work group or some portion of the work group. Because I think that we want to talk about that specifically.
Yeah, well, I'll just write something.
Yeah,
Then I don't know what anyone will do with it, but I'll just send it anyway.
well, so do this for me. Send one email, all right,
Okay.
and send it, rather than to me, because we have to document all this, send it to the ROC at caporegon.org
Yeah,
and say, I have this one individual who's not tracking income. And I have this question about my 20% earned income change. So you're asking for specifics, and then they'll get to me about looking at the tracking of income that we talked about earlier. And then we'll decide how to come together and talk with you about that 20% increase in income.
okay.
Yeah. So put it all in one
Just
email.
do that now and not.
Do it
part of
sooner
the
than later.
Application, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Because if we can correct it now and get your numbers up, then we would want to do that.
Okay. Thank
Cool.
you.
You're welcome. Hi, Laverne. Got my white cat people with their hands up.
Hey there.
Hey there.
Okay, I have a quick question. I couldn't remember exactly. The match letters can happen later, right? They don't need to accompany the package.
Correct.
Okay, I thought I
Um,
remembered that, but then there was something that came up where we sent off a match letter regarding another thing. And so I wanted to make absolutely sure we didn't have to have the match letters as part of
Yeah,
it.
so on the time, go ahead, Norm.
Oh, I was just gonna say, yes, your guys' match letters have to be can be sent out later. I think Capo sends out match letter requests because all grantees get charged the like 1.875% fee. So I might be reaching out to you guys individually to get a letter from Capo for Capo's match. But yeah, you guys rest a little bit for the match letter.
Okay,
Yeah, it's
all
like
right.
this
So
stuff-
that could happen a couple of weeks. It's not a problem.
Yeah, I
Okay,
think it's
all right.
like almost as like the third week of September, it might be due that late.
Yeah, I think it's. 'cause
I
we just have to
remembered it
get
was a
right
few
before we
weeks
submit.
last year between, so I just wanted to make sure that that was the same situation again this year, given the accelerated timeline of everything. I just had a mini panic attack of thinking I
Yeah.
need to also do those too. So, okay, all right, thank you.
Yep, you're good. It's the August 30th. That's, I think everyone's surprised at.
Yeah.
I think that HUD did something new this year on how quickly you have to get your stuff in.
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, Shauna.
Hi, I feel like my questions are going to be very simple, so just bear with me. As I'm going through the application, I had one really big question for one of our grants, and it's section 4 about the grant funding. And so it asked for the amount awarded and the amount spent, and then the previous year. So I talked to our fiscal director, and she sent me the ELOCs information. But the amount that we have, like, would be the amount awarded now, doesn't end till 8/31. So I assume I should not be using that one, correct? But then we only have one before that. So do I just put that in the previous and then leave, or put it in the amount awarded 1 and 2, and then leave 3 and 4 blank?
Don't leave it blank, because then it'll make it 0. No, it's kind of similar to what we said earlier, right? So if you can show, your finance department can show that you've pulled everything up until the end of July, because you haven't done August yet, that's what I'm hearing, then you would have a
Well,
full-
she sent me an ELOCs form that says up the end is 8/31. It gives me the balance and everything, but I thought because it ends on 8/31, I wouldn't use that because these were turning in 8/30, but I didn't know if that actually mattered.
Yeah, so I would say, don't worry about August yet, because you still have money in your account until she draws it, right? So what is,
Until-
yeah, yes. So what have you spent?
So that was my thing. It's not, I don't mind putting the numbers in. I'm just not
Right.
sure. Do I put
It's hard-
the
yeah.
numbers that end in 8/31 in 1 and 2 as like kind of that previous year?
Right,
Because then I have a secondary previous year for 3 and 4. But
Yeah.
if I use the actual completed one with those numbers for 1 and 2, I don't have a 3 and 4 previous years. So
exactly.
Isn't that similar to my situation? Because we're in the middle of a grant year right now. So we're needing to use the grants that ended 21 for us and then the one that ended in 20 for us. Her situation is just like it's one day.
Yeah, it's a little different because Claudia, it sounds like your finance department can show you it's all been drawn. Whereas at YCAP, Shauna still has her finance department still has a draw to do because her program overlaps.
Well, should she go back to the other year then and report not 20, the grant ending 22, but 21 and then 20?
And that's what I kind of wondered, because that's what I wondered too, because the only thing that seemed weird to me, and I need to connect with Elizabeth about it, is that she sent me 3 years for every other, grant, but for this one she didn't, and I don't remember what year this started. This program specifically started, so there may not be another year before that to even draw from.
Right.
And so it could be solved very easily if it's just like Elizabeth's like, oh yeah, I didn't send it to you, or we can create kind of an alternative way of accessing it. But if there isn't another year to pull from, what does that look like?
Well, technically it says your last completed year. So your grant's not completed, the one you're to 8/31.
Yeah.
So if you only have 1 year before that, then you'd put that as your last. And
yeah.
as far as the second questions about the year before last, I would put 0 because I have the same issue. I'm only in my second year of a grant. So I didn't have a grant 2 years ago. So I put 0. And
That's what I wondered. If I should just put 0.
Okay.
0,
So,
you were awarded 0 and you spent 0 and you'll come up to 100%. So it won't hurt.
Yeah, because it won't change the actual numbers. And I'm still waiting to hear back from Elizabeth on it, just to make sure 100%, since I'm new. I don't want to just, kind of assume, but I wondered if we don't have that, that would just be a 0. That makes sense to me too, that, we can't be dinged on something if we weren't awarded it. So,
so if you just to be sure, if you put 0 in there, make sure that the division doesn't come back and say you can't divide by 0. It probably won't, but I think it adds up, or it does not, it subtracts something.
That's the
So I
way
think
I
it's
did
fine.
mine and it was fine.
Yeah, I think it's fine, because I think that just subtract or something.
Yeah, it's just, yeah.
Yeah.
if there's a problem,
But
I'll send the call out.
don't leave it blank.
Okay.
Because then it
true.
doesn't calculate at all.
True. And Shauna, I think just, and also Dina, because we're going to have external people looking at this, maybe somewhere, Nora, we might want to think about this, have what you just said. It's going to be 0 because our grant cycle is not on cycle. So that when so-and-so looks at it, they say, okay, 0 is okay. So we have that. That's a really good point. These are really good things for us to think about next year, or this year, but next year. Cool. Heather, hi, I've been thinking about you a lot lately. How's it going?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing good. I'm having fun.
Yes, I've missed you guys, sorry. So we have so we're in the middle of a HUD audit right now, and so our grant ended on 6/30. They've asked us not to draw our admin until they review our thing, our HSS, whatever, I don't know. So everything's drawn but admin. I can't draw it until we get our audit report. So can I just show like the fiscal thing that says that it's been spent, like our general ledger, and then that letter from HUD that says don't draw it yet?
See, I'm almost thinking we should do the same thing, because have you drawn everything you said you were going to draw on the non-admin?
Yeah.
Well, no, Nora, because essentially if you put 0s in there, it's going to do the same thing as, having equal numbers.
Yeah, I mean, it ended 6/30, right? So the program is done. So it's not the same issue that
Not the same issue.
Sean was having, but it's similar to Claudia. So it just makes sense that, to me, it makes sense that if she can show that they have everything allocated, and that you're going to draw, then we can just put that in there and attach that.
Okay.
Yeah. So what you're holding for admin, if that's going to close out your grant, that I would put your total grant amount and put that, what you said you got from HUD, asking not to pull it.
Okay. Excellent. Thanks, guys.
Such unique questions. It's my first time around doing this. It's interesting. A lot of questions on that spending of funding.
I know, and we're realizing that everyone's projects can start at whatever date, and it's making things hard when we're having to figure out when everyone is drawn and if they pulled everything and
You know, and this is, you know, and so it's kind of going on, I should not go off topic, but it's part of this. So, you know, you're all hearing different scenarios about how you can spend and draw, you know, based on stuff like that. But we have to score you on some kind of your expenses, right? Because if you're not spending, that money could have gone to someone else in the rock, right? So we have to find a way to say, if you're not spending, we need you to that points. But if you're spending, so, you know, just kind of be thinking about that. Or, you know, nor next year, we always say, we know we're going to have, if you can document, we take it, as opposed to print out your e-logs. And okay. All right, good. I'm not watching the chat, so I'm hoping.
I'm watching it.
Okay.
Mostly people are just messaging me. We're just having good chats.
Huh.
We're mostly complaining about e-snaps and e-locks, so.
You know, yeah. There's a lot of people with e-snaps, you know, and including myself, because I have to get an e-snaps because I'm the one that's submitting the whole thing this year and I've never done it. So I'm with you. I'm with you, except the fact that I'm responsible for all of this with you, you know, so my umbrella is a little higher. So I'm like, oh my God. So maybe we should have an e-snaps moan and groan learns session.
David, can I ask a question about those questions that you all are sending out?
Who?
Collaborative agreement?
Oh, Claudia. Yeah, yes.
Okay, so I've never done that and I'm like kind of flying by the seat of my pants on them, you know, and like trying to put as much information that's pertinent to our area. Have we done, I'm sure that as the Rock, we've had to do this before, right? No?
No,
No?
not in the way that we're doing it. Do you want to finish your
Okay.
question and I'll give you why we're doing it?
Okay, the reason is because I was like, well, have we done this before? Can I see our answers from before to just like, but there's nothing.
Right. So historically, the application has been written with these questions, which are getting more advanced, by the way. The questions are getting harder, like a lot harder. And so in my experience, and I think, you know, those of you who have been around for a while would agree that we haven't done the best job of reaching out across all our region and saying, can you tell us what you're doing? So we're not really getting everyone's voice in. And so we've answered questions with what we think, oftentimes. So this year we said, we can't do it. We need to know, we need everyone's help. It's a collaborative application. So you're correct. The questions are, the way we're doing it's brand new. And what you share with us is what's going to be the collaborative answer for a lot of these questions. And you may not be able to answer them all, you know, just we need creative new answers.
Well, that's kind of helps because I was like, well, am I supposed to be following some type of template? Is there information that y'all are wanting from us? Because I'm like typing along and I'm like, well, this is what I think it is and this is what we're doing. And so I'm like, I hope that it's not like totally off of left field and I'm understanding it correctly.
No, and that's a good point. So, you know, we'll have Brooke, who's our new COC manager, and or Nora, maybe preface the one that goes out next that says, you know, these are just your brainstorm thoughts, bullet it. You know, we just need to know a little bit more. So no, it's not, it's just really helpful to us who are writing the big picture. But good question. I like that. What else?
Yeah, I do just have to this isn't like a gotcha. We're not trying to be like, are you doing this? It's really just like, hey, we need to do a check-in because we also don't know what you're doing. And we want to know all the amazing things so we can include in the collaborative application. So no, if you're not doing something, we're not going to be like, hey, Dad. we're trying to fix it for ourselves too.
Yeah, and you know, but also I think we talked this week that we want to be very upfront in our application. So if some of the questions we sent, we know that maybe we're not doing the best job, right? So you can acknowledge that and you can say, you know, we're not doing the best job with the blah, 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 and here's what we're doing to resolve it. Because we need to answer that as a COC also, right? So it's okay to say, "Nah, we're not up to snuff on this. I gotta think about where that came from, up to snuff. I have an idea. Anyway, you know, and so that's helpful too. So just, you know, if you're not doing it, say, we're not doing it, we need help. That helps us for sure. One thing that I will share with you since you came on to this is that we did find one error in the calculations around households for bonus points. So we can't change the template because it's locked. So once everything comes in, you know, then what I will do with a group is that we will make the change and send you back your scores exactly what you sent us with that one change that may increase your points or not increase your points. Okay, so you know exactly what we did, how we changed it. Yeah.
Shauna, did you have any more questions? I know at the beginning you mentioned that you had a couple.
I did, and I actually had a whole list of them. And then as we were sitting here, I was I think it was giving myself a chance to stop of, you know, trying to get everything organized. And I was reading through like the instructions again. And so some of them were answered. One of them I figured out on my own just as I was sitting here. So I actually feel pretty good. Laverne's been great. I'm sure at some point, I don't want to, you know, knock on wood, I'm sure at some point that it will feel a little more overwhelming. I think right now Laverne and I are committed to working over the weekend and, you know, having everything ready to go. So I think that we'll be okay, but I didn't have anything else that I think is pressing now. So I appreciate that very much. I guess if I just took a second, I think just a late start. So it kind of brought on panic a little bit. So thank you.
Yeah, so as you're going through it, you know, the ROC application work group really want to make it as easy as possible. So hopefully when you go through, it's like, oh, I don't necessarily need to panic because it's on your APR. It's like, take it. Now, if your APR is not accurate, you know, which some people have said, I had 5 people in this quarter and it's only showing 3, you know, that's where the time consuming stuff's going to go. It's like, why isn't showing up? So there's something in your data that's not showing up because we have to use the APR.
I've had the staff since yesterday digging into various issues that have popped up, and then new ones when they try to fix it, you know, and that's something else kind of comes along. So we've gone into that. The only one that I was kind of confused on was on section 6, I think it is. For the bonus points, and it was for like on one of them, it showed more people in that category than I thought that we had served, but I think it was just a math error that I made within my brain. So, but other than that, it's been pretty straightforward. What we found is just littler things that the team has to go into and make sure that they are reporting things correctly. We have quite a few new people. So as you know, David, because you had to train every single one of them, but as they're kind of getting served, we're working on the interim reports and making sure that was correct and all that good stuff. So it is time consuming. And so, but like I said, I think Laverne and I have committed to talking to each other a lot over the weekend if we need to, and then being prepared with a plan on Monday. So I may reach out on Monday morning early and just say, hey, these are the things I ran into really quick for any kind of support. But I also, Justina is very helpful for me because we work with her for the roles, you know, we send grants, so.
Okay. Yeah, and then just kind of going back to that, so the way what will happen is once your application comes in, then I'm running the APR from the ROC standpoint, and that's where we do the matches. And if there's a mismatch, last year I think we allowed dialogue about why is yours different than ours, you know, and we'll have to see if that needs to happen this year. If you have I'm okay. My time isn't very much available because I'm leaving for Portland for a training next Monday, I'm leaving Monday. But if you need a little, if you want to look at a client's data that's not showing up, and I have time, I will do my best to help that, you know, because I mean, ultimately, I want everyone to have accurate data going in there as much as possible. So I feel comfortable doing that. My time is very limited, you know, for that.
Yeah, I feel actually weirdly comfortable about what we have.
Okay.
Just I think my experience being in being a case manager and then a manager, like it all feels fairly comfortable kind of, and I'm kind of in the same situation where I'm a little bit worried about our income kind of and that going up because we do have people who've been in our program for years and trying to work with them with Social Security. And like it was mentioned, you know, that's you know, we've had something as small as like a form was not faxed to mental health and then the whole process falls apart. And so like getting dinged on that. So I think if I can write something explaining what we have been working on, you know, trying to, it's just, I don't know how long that will last. Kind of like what Dina said, like, how long does this last? You know, it's just, you know, within the next month, they might get it, but, or is this, you know, this is a 2-year long process and can we still get some sort of credit that we're trying to make that happen?
Yeah, my sense is, you know, going back to, we're going to look at what Dina's going to write. My sense is, I don't know if we're going to be able to give credit. And the reason why is that those numbers go to HUD. So if we don't have it accurate, it doesn't matter, right? Because that's what goes to HUD. And so the ROC is the one that gets the bonus or that pays the price, whatever it is. So as much as you can do and going back and finding and changing, like Dina said, I would do that. And then it is an emphasis in my trainings. You know, I spent 30 minutes with someone yesterday. We practiced that. How do you do income? Tracking changes. Because that could be the reason is that even tracking and service point is not happening correctly, even though that there has been a change. So it's a very good point. And HUD it doesn't come back and say, go check your data again. They're going to take the numbers as is. So it's a good point.
When this is all over, can we snag you for all of our staff to take a training on how to make sure that they're recording them correctly? Because
yes,
I just taught them all to do the interim reports again because they weren't doing those correctly. So I just want to make sure that our staff are fully comfortable with that so that next year it's, you know, much easier. So
yeah, absolutely. You know, and there are definitely areas of in-depth retraining that needs to happen that I actually think that were sloppily trained years ago, are not trained years ago. And then as we move into one big rock, you know, that you're not in isolation anymore, that a change in income may also mean that when someone goes from Ken's care and goes to Dina's CFC, you're tracking changes because now you're impacting across agencies, but you're impacting each other's agency, right? So we have to think, you know, at our home base, but also across the rock. So there's a lot of in-depth training that's going to happen across everyone, but also I'm happy to meet with your staff and do that too. In fact, I may need to do that across every agency for this. That's a good point. I want to say you're making it easier for me because I've never sat in this seat. Usually it was Caleb or Jesse. And you know, but I like all of you, so it's kind of, except Marcia, who I know is true. Who's not.
Nonsense. I am incognito.
You know, you could be Drew, Marcia. It's Marcia. I accept it, whatever it is.
Appreciate it.
Any last minute questions, guys? And as usual, always send your questions to rock@caporegon.org. Brooke and I are both checking it.
And so Dina's going to send at least that one.
She already did.
Oh, good, because I want to check that. And then I'm curious, I'm just curious. How many of you are writing a new application? Sean's like, no way. Well, then I won't see your lovely faces in about 20 minutes. That'll be another interesting. That'll take maybe longer than that. So I think we have what, 2 work days left. You know, Nora's leaving next week on her business trip. I'm leaving on my business trip to Portland. So we're starting to not have so much time. So it's going to be in your hands, you know, as much as possible. And we'll bring Brooke in as much as we can, for sure.
Well, if we don't have any more questions. Yeah, I'm gonna end the meeting. So David and I can have a little break before our next one.
Do
Okay,
we just,
thank
or
you.
do we just hang on as the same?
Yeah, it's the same one. Yeah, I'm gonna stop the recording real quick.